What's going on, guys? Today I am back at you with another Sole Swap hybrid. Today I'll be combining this Air Jordan 1 Union Woven with this Nike Footscape. This project is unlike any other that I've done in the past, but I'm extremely excited to get going on it. So let's get started by separating these soles. Before I get started separating the soles, I'm going to make things easier on myself by removing the laces and the insole. Then, in order to get the soles removed off of these Jordan 1s, I'm going to have to take out the stitching that actually holds the soles to the uppers. This is a long process, but if you don't do it, you can't remove the soles from the uppers. With the laces, insoles, and stitching removed, I can then start with my separation process. I'm going to begin by pouring some acetone into both the Jordan 1s and the Footscapes and then swishing it around. This will help to break down some of the factory glue. After letting the kicks sit for several minutes, I'm then going to break out a bone folder and start to pry the uppers away from the soles. With the Footscapes, this was a relatively easy process, except for when I got to the heels where I did have to bring out my steam gun to help to further break down the factory glue before prying these uppers completely away from the soles. For the Jordan 1s, I'm going to follow essentially the same exact process, but I do need to be a lot more delicate with this pair because I'm trying to preserve the uppers without causing any sort of damage to them. Because of this, I'm going to be using my steam gun substantially less, so then that way I don't risk any heat damage to any components of the uppers. For this process, I definitely had to use a lot more pressure from my hands, and I had to utilize the bone folder quite frequently to try and pry everything away. At the end of the day, I was able to cleanly separate the uppers from the soles without any damage. So I've taken these Footscapes and separated the uppers from the soles, and I've taken these Jordan 1 Unions and separated the uppers from the soles. What I'm going to be doing next is prepping the soles by removing the heel cuff and removing all of the old factory glue and debris. Then I'll be prepping the uppers, trying to remove any glue and factory debris, trying to get the surfaces of the upper ready to be bonded to the sole. To start with my prep work on the soles, I'm going to be using my Dremel. I use my Dremel at a high speed to help to grind away all of the factory glue and debris using a grinding bit. I find this to be one of the most helpful bits with the preparation process because it's very smooth and it uses heat and friction to remove the glue without causing any damage to the midsoles. Once I was done removing the factory glue, I broke out a steam gun and my bone folder again to help to remove this plastic cage from the heels of the midsoles. This was something that the sneaker savant specifically requested because he didn't think that it looked quite as good when placed on the uppers. With the heel cup removed, I'm going to align my soles onto the uppers, and using a heat erasable pen, I'm going to trace exactly where the soles fall on the uppers, so then that way I know exactly where I need to prep and remove any sort of factory glue and debris. With my soles aligned on my uppers, I break out my Dremel again, and this time I use a sanding drum to remove as much glue and debris from the factory as possible while following the lines that I just traced from my soles. Once I've finished up with my sanding bit, I use a metal shaving tip for the tighter areas. Once I've finished shaving down the uppers with my Dremel, I break out the cotton balls and acetone so I can remove any debris that I might have created during my prep process. I gotta be careful with the amount of acetone that I use so I don't damage the uppers during this process. Now that these Jordan 1 uppers and the Footscape soles have been totally prepped, they're ready to be glued together. Let's get ready to start the bonding process. For the gluing process, I'm going to be using Barge Super Stick cement. I apply my Super Stick in 2 light layers approximately 15 minutes apart from one another, making sure that I have nice even coats amongst all of the surfaces that are going to need to be bonded together. Once I've applied my glue to the uppers, I then move on to the soles, following pretty much the same exact process and making sure that I don't miss any areas so that when I do bond my surfaces, I'm going to have nice clean glue lines. With my barge applied, I'm going to let it cure for about 5 to 6 hours. After letting it cure, I'll start by aligning the heel and reactivating the barge using my heat gun. Once the barge has been reactivated, I'll use some strong pressure from my hands to bond the surfaces together. Then I repeat the same exact process over at the toe. With the toe and the heel aligned, I find that the medial and the lateral sides of the kicks will pretty much line up exactly where I need them, and that will allow me to get things bonded together a lot more easily with much less struggle. After I've gotten both the medial and the lateral sides completely bonded together, I check to make sure that there are no gaps, and then I hit the inside of the kicks with some heat to allow me to bond all of the internal surfaces. With everything pressed together and bonded correctly, these shoes are nearly completed. With everything bonded together, I'm going to apply some sprayed mink oil to help to seal and condition the uppers. Then I'll insert my insoles and I'll relace these kicks before I call it a day on this project. Now that this Jordan 1 Footscape sole swap is complete, let's take a closer look. At the end of the day, I am pumped with how these things turned out. I had my reservations going into the project because I definitely didn't know if the sole was going to fit on the Jordan 1 appropriately, but I was actually able to make it work, and with some minor paint touch-ups, these things came out absolutely amazing. I love the vision that the sneaker savant had trying to combine the Footscape with the Jordan 1 Union upper, because this really meshes together that woven feel of the upper with the original Footscape sole, but bringing that new element of life to it with the Jordan 1. I'm really psyched at how cleanly I was able to put these things together, and the glue lines are looking absolutely amazing. Well, these things definitely had their fair share of challenges. I think that they turned out really dope, and I'm pretty juiced with the final product. I definitely ran into my fair share of struggles with making this pair, but in the end, they came out really nice, and I think that the sneaker savant is going to be pumped with the outcome. I'm really curious to hear what you guys think about this project though, so make sure to let me know in the comments below. As per usual, thank you to everybody that stuck around until the cold, bitter end of this video. You guys already know, I'm Sailboat, and I'm out of here.